In this video, we are going to cover what types of tests we can run in React Native, and I've decided to go with three most useful types in my opinion. And first, let's start with unit tests. So here we have some sort of component login screen. We have the username, input, password input, and submit button. And here with unit tests, what we are testing essentially is just that component. What it does it works as expected. Here, just that piece, that unit, that's why it's called unit test. And here, if username and password are empty, so if we did not input anything and the username or the password input, and we click on the submit button, we should display some sort of an error because here we did not input anything, username cannot be empty, password cannot be empty as well, and we do not need to send this to the server to know that it wouldn't work to get the error from our database. For example, we can test it right here and we can save some time. And essentially with unit tests, we are just testing the component in isolation. So that's what we are doing with unit tests, and that's what we are mostly focused on in the whole section. But the next type of test that we are working with is integration test. So let's say here we have two screens. We have the login screen and we have the profile screen as well. And here with integration tests, we are testing the integration between these two components. So that's why it's called integration tests. Here we are testing, so for example, in the unit test, we tested if the username is empty and password is empty. And let's say we added another test to check if username is long enough and if password is valid and long enough as well. And here now we are testing, we are sure that works as expected. We inputted the right username, the right password, and we clicked submit. And here we are checking if the API for authentication is being called successfully. So we are testing that part, and then we are testing if we are being navigated to the other screen, to the profile screen. So we are testing essentially what is happening when the submit button is clicked. We are authenticated, and are we being navigated to the profile screen? And here in unit tests, you can test this as well, but it's not real as it gets with integration tests, because with unit tests, you can mock, essentially provide fake functionality for example, authentication service. And then instead of hitting the API route, which we would do with integration tests, we would just mock the function and then see if that function is called. So we would not use the real function from the library or the API that we are using. We would just provide some fake functionality. So instead, using API post, and we would not trigger the server, we would just create some logic to pass the test, just to see if that logic is being called, if that function is being called. Here we are testing the whole thing and we are checking if we are being navigated to the profile screen. That is the integration test. Here E2E test, here with E2E test, we are testing the whole thing. So essentially opening the app, typing in the username, typing in the password, clicking the submit button, checking if the API works properly. Then if it works properly, are we being navigated to the profile screen? And that is essentially the same thing we are doing with integration tests, but here we are also checking if the data is being displayed on the profile screen. So want to check if username and profile picture are being displayed. So for example, here when we log in, click the submit button, everything works as expected. Authentication is successful, we get the user, and then maybe we want to pass the properties from this screen to this screen. When we are navigating, we want to navigate past the navigation route path name, and then we also want to pass some params like username or profile picture, so we don't have to fetch that again. And we want to check here if those properties are being passed, so we are essentially caching those properties so we don't have to fetch them again, and user wouldn't need to wait another API GET request. So essentially that's what we are doing with E2E test. Essentially we are testing the whole thing, the whole workflow of user logging in essentially whole thing. With integration tests, we are testing integrations between these two screens, and with unit tests, we are just testing one component in isolation. So yeah, that is all when it comes to testing. Three most important testing types in React Native. I'll see you in the next one.